everybody. Welcome to the Talking Heartland podcast. This is the show where we talk about the show Heartland, and we are in season 4, episodes 7, 8, and 9 this week. And this is an interesting set of episodes. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Michelle's here.
Hey everyone.
Hey, how are you doing?
Oh, good. Just getting by like everybody else.
Yeah. And some nice spring weather there.
It's a bit cold, but it's not been raining. The snow's kind of come and gone. And we're fully in spring now, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to kind of get out and walk about. Which we haven't been able to do.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
You don't need your winter coat on, which is always nice.
Weird.
Well, very good. So these episodes were, like I said, in the thick of season 4, and next week we are going to be covering the Heartland Christmas movie. So
yeah, that kind of threw me. I was like, they must have gone on a break or something.
Yeah,
because this is the summer. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I know, me too. And they must have had like a mid-season finale, and then had the Christmas movie and then come back or something. But yeah, so it'll be it's always fun to watch a Christmas movie off season. It's always my favorite. I love that. But in this first episode, it's called Jackpot. And this is basically, there is this rodeo called the Jackpot. And everybody's kind of scheming and forming teams for the roping event is the big thing. And Caleb is looking for some cash because of they have a new landlord with Val. And so then Amy and Kit end up becoming roping partners. And then Badger and Mallory, their relationship is confusing. And then Tim is dealing with his horse Dexter that he is trying to sell, and he might sell it to Lisa. So those are kind of the main dynamics going on. Overall, what did you think of this episode?
This wasn't my favorite episode. I'm going to be honest. That I really struggled with this one. If it wasn't for kind of the Mallory Badger Jake thing, I probably would have kind of tuned out of this episode. I don't love whenever they go to the racing track. It's kind of I think maybe it's because personally I don't really like horse racing. I don't really love it. I don't really like enjoying watching it. So I think that kind of checks me out a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Whole kit thing, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like going to the track, it's just like, oh, here's Tim's gonna be a jerk.
Exactly. I felt so bad for the horse. He was just like not even fully recovered, and he's like offloading on him, like he's calling him like a money pit, and it's like he made you a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, and it's not a money pit. It's you not treating him right and caring for him right. Therefore, like, this is not the horse is doing, it's you're doing. It's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. And in this kind of world, it's your responsibility to take care of the horses in the best way possible. And he only has, I'm guessing, like a few horses at this point, so he's fairly new to this world as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I liked him a lot better in the scenes where he is trying to work with Amy or trying to become a better dad, and sort of those plot lines, and kind of sparring off with Jack and stuff, as opposed to him being the selfish, cranky person of business.
When it comes to kind of money and things like that, I feel like his worst qualities kind of come out.
Yeah. I agree.
When they put kind of Tim and Jack together, I'm fully on board. It's just this kind of going to the racetrack thing I'm kind of not on board with.
Yeah, I agree. And this episode has a 9.0 on IMDb. The Heartland fans, they really upped the ratings for almost every single episode of the show. They, I
And
got
isn't going to be 9.0.
yeah, like in comparison for the nanny, almost every episode of the nanny, because I do the Frank cast, is around 7.
Yeah.
um, on IMDb, and you have an occasional 8.5 is about as high as I've seen. And on Heartland, almost every episode is a 9.0 or higher.
It's really strange.
Yeah.
Because even in I've got like a little app on my phone, I think it's called TV Time, and it
Uh-huh.
just helps me keep track of where I am. Like you just click off every time you watch an episode or something.
Yeah.
And you can kind of go into the comments on each episode. So for something like One Division, which is huge right now, like there's loads of comments.
Uh-huh.
With Heartland, you kind of go on it. There's like 2 comments, 3 comments, which is fair enough because it's like an older show.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, it's just funny to kind of see the comparison compared to like a brand new show compared to going
Right.
back and looking. And yeah, it's funny to kind of see all the responses of like just like people hate a character, then the next comment is somebody loving a character, and you can't
Right.
really get a feeling on how people felt when it aired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're getting just like the hardcore fans as opposed to a more broader spectrum, which you'd get with something like WandaVision. And it turns out Dexter, the horse, that needs an MRI. So, of course, Tim is complaining. He says, time is money, and I'm running out of both. You have Ashley and Caleb's land being sold, and it gets sold to Val. And of course, that's going to cause all kinds of conflict coming up. And I don't know, how are you feeling about Ashley and Caleb?
They didn't bother me as much as in previous episodes. I feel like he can be a little over the top in his kind of like this kind of husband role. It just
Uh-huh.
feels very old fashioned to me.
Yeah.
And it feels like Ashley's kind of lost a lot of her kind of, the things that kind of drove me mental, but also kind of enjoyed about Ashley.
Uh-huh.
It's like those things are kind of being slowly stripped away from her, which I don't love seeing. I prefer to see her with Amy and Soraya and that kind of, even with Val. Um, yeah, I just don't love, what her personality has sort of become around Caleb. I just feel like she's squeezing herself into this role that she doesn't really fit.
Mhm. Yeah, and I have to admit, I don't feel like they have that great of chemistry, and I think that I would be rooting for them more if I really was feeling it between the 2 of them, but I don't know if I really do.
I don't think we really got much of a build up. I mean, we kind of
Mhm.
just got banter, and then they were like together, like
That's true.
overnight, pretty much. We didn't really see them date or the way Amy and Ty did. It was just kind of like overnight. Then they were together, and then in the next episode they were married. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point. That's true. And basically they talk about they're gonna sell everything that they own to buy the land. She considers selling her ring, and he's gonna cut down his hours at Heartland in order to do more for the rodeo. And he asked Kit to rope with him, but then he's not satisfied with Kit, and so he basically breaks up with Kit, and because he wants to be with this guy Wyatt.
Mm.
But so then it leaves Kit and Amy both mad, so they decide to partner up for the competition. And they kind of have Amy doing everything, and she's also sort of, I think, good at everything. They have her doing the roping, they have her doing the jumping, they have her doing the she was a jockey in the last episode. She of course does the training. And I don't know, I mean, I guess I don't know if that was something that is common.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
this
I
world
think
well
it's just
enough.
this. it ties into this whole kind of miracle girl thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of like all around equestrian kind of, but that's just kind of her world. And
Yeah.
she's good at everything. I accept it. It doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole Kit Amy thing just kind of drove me mental.
What didn't you like about it?
It just feels. I don't understand why they were mad at each other. I don't understand, especially when it kind of is revealed that Kit has a new boyfriend, and I'm like, well, why are you still holding on to this thing of like Amy stole Ty from you if you don't still have feelings for Ty, which she clearly doesn't at this point. It just feels like they're kind of mad at each other for nothing, or something
Yeah.
that should have kind of fizzled out at this point. It just felt it just seemed kind of aggressive, really aggressive for no reason. Like they were really hard on each other.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can kind of empathize with Kit because I think that Amy would be someone who would be easy to feel kind of jealous of because she's just so good at everything. And I can kind of understand that rivalry being there, but it doesn't make for great television when I don't know, they're just kind of snappy at each other the whole episode because you want to be rooting for people.
And maybe if it had, been more focused on Amy kind of coming into Kit's world without her kind of grown up in it the way the Kit has, if that was the entire storyline without it being about boys and that kind of thing, maybe it would have landed a bit
Yeah,
better with me. Because that is a genuine kind of grievance to have. It doesn't feel good when you're work real hard at something and then somebody comes in that never really done it before and they're you know as good, if possibly better than me at.
right. Yeah, and I also am not a huge fan of this Mallory, Badger, Jake, Jamie situation going on. I don't
I kind
know.
of like it. Yeah, I kind of like it. I think it's just because they're so innocent and cute. So it's like a nice break from all of the kind of other stuff that was going on in this episode. Um, I'm kind of glad that we kind of didn't completely wrap it up in these 3 episodes, but it certainly didn't drag out as it could have, as long as
Yeah.
it could have.
I guess
Um,
I guess I don't know. For me, I don't really relate that much to these like super intense teen slash child romances that often occur, whether in movies or television, because uh, where people are really having these sort of discussions about love and things like that when you're so young that I don't know, that's just not something I relate to at all because I mean, I just dated like socially and stuff like that, but I don't think
yeah,
most people find the love of their lives when they're in high school. I mean, so you should just be able to have kind of fun dating when you're young. Like you shouldn't have to worry about is this am I in love or and you know what I mean?
yeah. I think I'm able to kind of accept it, or kind of I think because it's in this kind of almost kind of a soap setting, I'm
Mm.
kind of able to kind of let it go. But when you look at a show like Stranger Things and the whole
Mhm.
kind of Mike 11 thing, the whole thing on the internet, and I'm like, what? Why are we putting all this pressure or
Yeah.
all these adults invested in the relationship between 30? Like it just blew my mind. Um, and I just couldn't get my head around it. Especially, I mean, understandably, if it was other 13-year-olds, fair enough.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was kind of adults, kind of reviewing and talking about them, as if they were adults. Um,
Yeah, I
I think
remember
kind of in a more serious setting, fair enough.
Mhm.
But I think maybe this just because this is more of a soap kind of,
Mhm.
that's the way I kind of watch Heartland.
Yeah, that's a good point. I remember a few years ago at the library, they had a thing about it said, "You feeling sad about your love life or whatever?" And it was some kind of thing for teens. And they had like a picture of Bella and Edward, and they had a picture of Harry and Harry and Ginny and whatever. And I just thought, this is insane. Why the teenagers shouldn't be feeling bad about their love life? Like, what?
And I don't think
It's
Ed and
crazy.
Bella are really what you should be aiming for.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you should just be out having fun, going on dates and stuff. You shouldn't worry about or not going on dates. Like, you're in high school. I don't know. But it just seems a little grown up for their age, I guess, for me. But like I said, I had a more sort of I wasn't somebody who dated a ton in high school, so that might be part of it. But anyway, yeah, Mallory and Badger, and then Badger feels like is especially in the next episode is Mallory kind of using her because he's she's jealous about Jamie and Jake, and then Jamie and Jake win at the jackpot, as do Amy and Kit, which makes Ashley upset. And I mean, what does she expect them not to compete? I don't know. That seems kind of crazy.
Caleb's whole plan was kind of crazy. He was like, I'm going to quit the job that actually is definitely going to pay me at the end of every week and just focus on rodeo, which will only pay me if I win. And he was that confident that he was going to win everything. I was like, that just doesn't seem like a well thought out
Yeah.
plan.
Well, and without like the practicing and
Yeah,
the
exactly.
I don't
Someone
know.
that he's worked with a long time, or
Yeah. And I still don't understand why it was a bad thing that he took the sponsorship from Val. I mean, they weren't even a couple hardly at all then.
yeah,
And I don't know. It's very weird to me. But we also have Dan and Tim and Lisa all battling out who's going to get this horse Dexter. And Dan calls Heartland small potatoes, which is very offensive. And so then Val ends up buying, like I said, buys the land, and uh, the I forget who says that this is compared to an all-out war between you and Dan. It's small potatoes. The for the horse, and so there we go. Yeah, this episode, I don't know. I'd give it like a 6, I guess, out of 10.
yeah. Like I went with 7.5, but that was
Yeah.
being very generous.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go move on. So the next episode called One Day. And in this episode, you have the you have the Amy has been hired to teach a class of convicts that are training these Mustangs. And they're kind of nervous about it at first, but it goes pretty well. But then Ty knows one of the prisoners, one of the inmates, and they have a backstory together where they were both stealing beer or something. Well,
Yeah, I think they broke into like a brewery, a brewery.
that seems like a big risk for small reward.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was kind of like, what? But nevertheless, that's what they do. And his friend gets caught. He gets away, but he's full of guilt. And the friend is played by our good friend Tyler Hynes. So that was pretty fun. But what did you think overall of this episode?
yeah. Like this episode, I thought this was such a great episode for Ty, which I don't think we've really had since the plane crash. So
Yeah.
yeah, this was such a good episode for Ty. And I love seeing Tyler. He's one of my favorite Hallmark guys. Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah, and I love the plot of the inmates kind of teaching. were learning, how to work with horses and things like that. Yeah, this was, definitely lifted me after the last episode.
Yeah.
As far as sort of the little kind of side stories that they do, this was definitely one of the better ones. And it sort
Yeah.
of ties into like things that I've watched. They do have those shows where they have inmates kind of work with dogs and things like that.
Yeah, and if you've seen the movie The Mustang from 2019 with Matthias Schoenaerts, that is a very good movie, and it's all about this kind of prison inmate working with Mustangs
Hmm.
program and the kind of program, and it's a very good movie. And the therapy of kind of, I mean, there's a kind of a metaphor even, I think, to the whole idea of sort of training these Mustangs, also sort of training the wild prisoners. Sort of, I think there's sort of dynamic going on there, which is interesting.
I would have liked it to kind of hear from a few other of the inmates instead of just focus
Mm,
on kind of the one guy. But
that's true.
I recognise they only have 40 minutes, but it would have been nice to kind of. It's definitely a story I hope that they kind of go back to.
Uh-huh. I definitely could have used more of that and less of Val and Caleb and Ashley sparring.
Yeah, it's just more of the same.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so Val, she starts like planting all these flowers and this water feature, and it just all looked so ridiculous.
Yeah,
And
and I'm like, it doesn't really take away from the fact that it's a trailer. Like, I don't understand. To just surround it with flowers and make it like the issue is you have is that they live in a trailer. Like putting flowers out doesn't really change that for you.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously just her trying to give sort of a power grab in this whole situation, but she's acting like a child. And I mean, you would think that she's obviously like a single woman, single mother situation. And so you think she would have a little bit more understanding for her daughter
Yeah,
and trying to make this all work.
yeah. I think it is just the fact that she, comes from money and as she does kind of look down her nose a little bit at the way Caleb's lifestyle is, which, is awful.
Uh-huh.
Um, but you think Val would see the type of person that Ashley is, that she doesn't really care about, well, the Ashley that we have now, she doesn't really care about materialism or, money or, she just wants to have a life this life that she's chosen. I might not, not the biggest fan of the relationship itself, but
Hmm.
has grown into, an amazing person throughout kind of all these.
Yeah. Well, and the decision has been made, right? And
Yeah, and
so
she's made, yeah, exactly.
you think you'd want to give it its best shot of being happy as you possibly can.
Mm,
That's what I would think. And so then you also have Badger and Mallory and Jake and Jamie all picking berries for Mrs. Bell. And I was like, what are those berries that they were picking? Was it blueberries or I don't know. It was like I've never seen, or currants or something. I didn't couldn't tell what kind of berries those were.
yeah, I was watching on my TV. Maybe if I was watching on my laptop, I might have been able to see a bit better. But yeah, I just assumed it was like blueberries, or raspberries or something.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't raspberries, but it because it was like a more of like a one kind of
Or was it
berry.
like a one berry? Yeah,
Yeah,
it might have been blueberries then.
yeah, it must have been blueberries. But
Blueberry jam.
oh man, I love berries so much. Any kind of berry, I'm a big fan. and, and they're so labor intensive to pick.
Yeah.
This is random, but it reminds me of my my aunt was telling me, this is years ago, that they went blueberry picking with her and her kids, and the whole time was just miserable. The kids were just complaining, and so just made the whole thing just awful. And
Huh.
and so she's like, why did we even bother doing this? And then the next year, she was somehow it got brought up or whatever. And her kid's like, that was so fun. Did you do that again? What? That was really funny. But yeah, they're not having very much fun with the berry picking, and particularly Badger is very complaining. They're all jealous of each other, and Badger says, I can't wait to get back to my real life. And he says, you're using me to make Jake jealous. It makes you the jerk, not me. Do you agree with Badger here?
I think he's been a little extreme, but yeah, I think it is pretty obvious to everyone, probably apart from Jake, that Mallory's kind of feelings are more for him than they are for Badger at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do think she should be a little bit honest about, you know, our feelings towards Badger, because yeah, especially with him, you know, he's not going to be around for much longer. He's, you know, leaving at the end of the summer, so
Yeah.
should let him know where he stands.
Yeah, and I don't know. Again, it's just hard for me to get invested in this super young relationship, but then Badger gets stung by the bees, and Jake is our hero. He's not only got one EpiPen in his boots, he's got one EpiPen in each boot. Which was pretty good.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind like picking berries, but there was no way I would be doing it near bees. No chance.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, no, thank you. No, I'm out.
Are you allergic to bee?
Not allergic, I'm just very scared of them.
Yeah.
I love bees. I would never harm a bee. We need more of them.
Uh-huh.
And have a lot of plants and stuff in my garden to attract bees, but that doesn't mean I like going anywhere near them.
Yeah, same. And I died laughing though with Jack and his blue tooth, green tooth. It's all thing. Like,
it reminded me so much, and this is like, my dad doesn't listen to this, so it should be fine. But it reminded me so much of when he first got like a computer.
yeah.
Like, the most basic questions, and you're like, seriously.
Yeah, I know it did. And
even now, like whenever he gets like wireless headphones, I have to connect them. It's like, how many times? Because he was like, they don't work on my tablet, and I'm like, what do you mean? And the Bluetooth just wasn't switched on.
Yeah. And he's saying to like Val and stuff, tell them to pray for me. Oh no, he's talking to Lou on the phone.
To Lou.
Yeah.
Away in Dubai.
To pray for me. Working with the scanner. Because he's trying to help Badger with his art and everything, and to get into the school. And yeah. It was really funny. And so then we get back to Joe and Ty. And basically, Ty says that he owes Joe a few favors because he feels like he took the fall for him. And if it wasn't for him, then he would never have come to Heartland Ranch, and he would never met Amy and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, it definitely went to some kind of dark places that you don't typically see on these kinds of shows. But it was good. I liked it, and it was fun to see Tyler in this role. And he says Ty got it all: the job, the life, the pretty girl.
Yeah, and you can understand why you would kind of feel, especially because it is also revealed that he has a son.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we find they had the crazy Saudi who would come out and say, one day I'll be king. And Joe says that to himself every day.
Yeah.
One day is all I've got. So, and then you have Val talking to Jack. And after she's given the eviction notice to Ashley and Caleb, and Jack says, what are blue teeth? and Jack just tells Val they've made their choices. The best I can hope for is that they are happy. He's like, obviously I wouldn't want Lou with an oil man. And but they made their choices. So the best I can hope for is they're happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was good. I like the dynamic of Val and Jack. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it was nice. She kind of referred to him as our best friend. Yeah. Wonder how
Mm-hmm.
Lisa feels about that.
Yeah. Well, and then Joe ends up trying to escape on the horse, and Ty runs him down, and then they have like a slugfest. They're fighting. And he convinces him to come back, and that's just when he reveals that Joe has the son. And he says, when you break a horse, sometimes you have to break the rider first. That's what they say. And so then you have a scene between Caleb and Val where he was pretty threatening. Like, I know Val has been a jerk,
This was
but
crazy. Yeah, this was really crazy. It just didn't fit with the whole tone of this whole storyline.
yeah.
Like it was, yeah, I did not like that. It was like aggressive and almost violent.
Yeah.
Just on the line of violence, which
Yep.
yeah, was not great.
Is that our favorite ice cream truck?
That's our favorite ice cream truck.
Yes!
Yeah.
So, so yeah, Caleb tells Val, I'll move her so far you'll only see her on Facebook.
That
And,
was really far. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, at this point, Val should just do what Jack says, as far as just let them live their life. And, you know, if Ashley's going to come to a conclusion about a life, she'll do that on her own. And that's when she'll kind of come to you. But yeah, for Caleb to kind of respond in this way of like, I'll take her away from you, like that was, yeah, again, falling into this kind of whole kind of ownership thing.
right.
This whole, yeah, you know, I'm the husband kind of thing, which I'm not loving from him.
Yeah, I agree. And so then Joe is able to successfully ride the Mustang, and Jack sends Badger to like a performing arts kind of school for artists and stuff. And Badger leaves with a kiss for Mallory and says something to remember me by. So there we go. So what would you give this episode?
8.5 I'm gonna go with. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I really loved the kind of the storyline with the guys training the horses.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good rating.
We just want to take a break from the show just to have a little check-in before we go on in the show. So we actually want to talk about our sponsor for this week, BetterHelp. In 2021, it's definitely okay to talk about your mental health, about your happiness. Humans aren't meant to keep everything inside. It can make us sick, and therapy helps. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now. Maybe you need some tools to help. Maybe you've got stress, insecurity, problems in your relationship, are not dealing well with things going on in your life. And that's what therapy can be.
And whatever you need, don't be ashamed, because normal humans struggle and they start to feel better. And that's okay. It's good to start to feel better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers you video, phone, or a live chat session with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to.
The good thing is BetterHelp is much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join millions of people who are seeing what therapy is really about. See if it's for you, because you are your greatest asset.
So this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Hallmarkies Podcast listeners can get 10% off of their first month of at betterhelp.com/Hallmarkies. That's betterhelp.com/Hallmarkies.
And the next is called Local Hero. And this one, Lou comes back from Dubai, and then the Ty and Amy find some of the lost cattle from her that were stolen last season from her dad. And that is a big part of trying to rustle up the cattle, and the conflict with the police that are useless in helping the situation. And then there's also more conflict between Ashley and Val, where Val wants her to get Caleb to sign a marriage contract, and it turns out they may not actually be married in legitimately. So yeah, overall, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I really like this one. It kind of felt like we were saying earlier, it did feel like a mid-season finale.
Yeah.
It just felt like things were escalating the entire episode. And I did actually kind of start it yesterday. And something happened and I got distracted. And I had to kind of finish it a couple hours ago. And there was like 2 points in this episode where I was like, oh my god, like it actually got a reaction out of me, which isn't usually happen with this show, because yeah, I do kind of just, it is kind of more of a comfort show, but so for it to kind of shock me twice was pretty good.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a pretty good one. I was a little bit irritated about Lou coming back, because it feels like, didn't we just have the reconciliation with Peter, and them, them realizing that it didn't matter where they are, that they're, that's what their love is what matters, and the big reconciliation on the dock. And I don't know, I just felt like, are we just going through this cycle again? We literally
Yeah.
just had that.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the thing as well. When I was watching it, I was just like, oh my god, I don't mind, having to go do something else and switching it off. It does kind of frustrate me on behalf of like the character and the actress, of like everything about her storyline revolves around Peter, and even when
Yeah.
Peter isn't there, it still revolves around Peter.
Yeah.
I'm like, give Lou something fun to do. Like, she's got all these businesses. Like, let's see her do something in that, in that world. It just kind of bothers me that everything kind of revolves around Peter at this point.
Yeah, and I just don't feel like this whole thing with the Dubai thing, I don't know, it's just not interesting to me. Like, I wish they had just had them be like a normal couple in Heartland. And
Yeah, I don't know if it's kind of the availability of that actor, but even if, like Lou says at the end of the episode, like they're long distance even when they're together. Like he works all the time, so why did he insist on her coming to Heartland, coming to Dubai, if they weren't going to be able to spend time together?
yeah, and
Just have her stay in Heartland the entire time. I don't understand.
yeah. Well, and why have a whole episode where you get back together and you realize that you really do care about each other, and then just like 2 episodes later, be like, well, sounds like they're basically broken up, it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. There's definitely something that she's not saying, because she was definitely very, keeping
Yeah.
something from the family
Yeah.
the
So
first part of the episode.
so they find the cows, they have Tim's brand on them. And then so it's like, what do we do with the stolen cows? And how do we get them back? And Tim gets very upset with the police, because there's all these forms you have to fill out, and they're not helpful at all. And that's frustrating and probably very accurate.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess.
Jack was so funny. It's like, you be calm. I'm going to come with you to make sure nothing, bad happens. And then he's the one that loses his cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And so then you have you also have Chase giving Soraya a plane ticket to come and visit. And this again is sort of more like Soraya's response to me is more understandable than some of the teenage romances, because she's just kind of like, wow, I'm not ready for this, right? This is too grown up. And I feel like I'm like, yes, that's correct. You're 17. I mean, I would never take a plane just to see a guy when you're that young. I don't know. It just seems too much.
Yeah, no way.
Too much.
Yeah, I think it is, especially when you watch kind of shows now of like teenagers and things like that. It's just like that was not my world at that age.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's so crazy. Like even like I mean Riverdale is like the worst, like it's the best, but it's also the worst. It's like the best show to kind of watch to switch your brain off, but like the teenagers in it are like they're all like 25.
Right.
25-year-olds, and they're all doing the things that you're like, why? Like owning bars and owning businesses. Like this just isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know it's a classic cliche and everything, but it just, I don't know. Like I really like shows like the Babysitters Club or whatever, where they allow teenagers to actually be teenagers and to feel young and innocent and I don't know. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the Ginny and Georgia one, that was kind of
Oh, I've
more
heard good
on
things
the
about that.
that was kind of more on the side of more realistic in terms of like social media and all those kind of things. But yeah, it's definitely nice to kind of watch someone like Soraya just kind of make the decision for herself. She knows herself enough to say this isn't, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
Plus I've got, I'm starting school.
So Val wants Ashley to get Caleb to sign a marriage contract, basically a prenup after the marriage. And I don't know, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they should have done that to begin with. I think when you're, especially from Val's point of view, understandable. And I was actually surprised at Caleb's response. He wasn't interested in the money to begin with, so why would it bother him, signing something that says, her money's her money?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why Val would need to do this, because couldn't she just make sure that Caleb's not in the will in any way? Why does she
Yeah,
care?
possibly. Yeah, I mean, she would probably have to just leave it to Ashley, and if Ashley wants to, share her money, she can. I
Yeah.
don't think anything really changes that, whether she signs it something or not. So yeah.
It's weird. But just another attempt to
Maybe it was
control
just to get
them.
us. It was just to get us to the the legal part where they could actually find out about the marriage. Maybe this
Yeah.
was just a ploy to a writing
I mean,
tactic to get us into that office.
I would think that she would be kind of impressed with Ashley in a way, that she's so committed and that she's making things work, and that and again, like we said, once they pitch their tent, like that's it. I agree with Jack. Like then you have to work on supporting. It's kind of like you obviously don't want your teenage daughter to end up pregnant, of course. But once they are, then it's like, okay, we have to support and we have to take care of, and we have to make sure everything, like then it's done. So then you have to,
especially for someone to grow up as privileged as Ashley was, for her to not care about these things anymore and just kind of, work at the life that she's chosen. You think there would be a bit of pride in that, that she's not just, mining, her parents for money or,
Right. Yeah. And so they go out to find the cows, and they tell Mallory to stay here and hold down the fort. And Mallory doesn't like that, so she goes anyway by herself, and which is going to be very bad. And as they are getting the cows, the cow wrestlers come back, but they put a tree in the middle of the road, and Tim shoots the tires out of the on their car, and so then they end up with the wrestlers in the trailer, and so that's some pretty good scenes. I thought some pretty intense moments.
yeah, when Mallory kind of walked up to the trailer. I was like, oh my god, here we go. This isn't going to go well. But in general, I kind of felt bad for Mallory this whole episode because, we don't really talk about it much because we don't see them, but her parents are still on this tour. She's kind of here on her own. And it sounds like, Jake and Jamie have kind of, not been friends with her anymore in terms of, because of her feelings for Jake.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's just kind of left at Heartland when things are happening. So she's been left out, kind of left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
But I do kind of for
It's
her, even
true.
though it was a crazy decision to go to follow them.
She even says that to Jack. She says, "I'm only part of the family when it counts, except for when it really counts."
Mhm.
And she says, "Yeah, my parents are gone. I'm not really a part of this family," and so I can understand that. Of course, the cow wrestlers end up taking her basically kind of hostage, and so that doesn't go well. And that's what gets Jack very upset. But I did like when they have the cows in the middle of the road with
Outside the
him.
police station.
Yeah. And so then you have Soraya telling Chase that she can't go because of school and everything, and Chase then ends up coming to visit her. And are we supposed to like Chase at this point, do you feel like?
I think so. It is kind of strange that we haven't really seen much of them, which is kind of frustrating. Because it does feel like he's really changed since we saw him doing those kind of clinics with Amy. He's not as cocky, he's not as, as self-assured. He kind of realizes that he's going to have to be better if he wants things to kind of work with Soraya. So, he seems like a really good guy in these episodes, which is kind of opposite to, the way we saw him when we first met him.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that we've just not really seen him interact with Amy, since he and Soraya have kind of got together.
Yeah, it's a little confusing because I'm like, is he supposed to be a jerk or are we liking him? And
I think you can kind of come away from this episode not like, disliking him, because he does everything right in this episode.
Yeah. So he's really nice to Soraya and doesn't push. He's not pushy as far as a relationship goes. And and then she's still working at the Dude Ranch, and Lou says even in Dubai it feels like they're in a long distance relationship. So I guess she's going to be back, and is she going to officially break up with Peter? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, that would be too easy.
Yeah.
I think that's wishful thinking on my part. Yeah, I think there's more drama ahead with Peter and Lou, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's something different and we're just not doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah. And I also did like when Mallory's trying to feed the baby calf. That was pretty funny. It's getting like dragged all along. And they're like, what are you doing? So yeah, this was a pretty good episode, I would say. Even the Tim stuff was pretty amusing and funny. The Caleb and Ashley stuff, I don't know. Oh yeah, we find out that they're not legally married. Which I don't know. Like, if the officiant had let his license expire, like, I would be super angry about that. Like, that, I mean, it wouldn't be only them. That I'm sure he married other people, and that could cause all kinds of problems. Like, that's crazy.
And I don't understand how, like, unless you're going to do something, go into a lawyer's office and ask about something, and that's how you're going to find out. Like, it feels like you should probably inform people, like, everybody that you married, like, and not just leave it to chance that you actually find this information out.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I feel like at that point, basically, I think legally you probably, I mean, I think you would be considered a common law marriage anyway. So I think legally it'd be one and the same. But I mean, I don't know how Canadian laws work, but I think that any sort of protections legally as far as marriage in this situation would still be upheld because, like I said, it would basically be a common law marriage. It's just it's almost a formality at a certain point, but still, like that's I would be extremely upset if I found out that the officiant hadn't had his license. Like, what is he doing? And that I wasn't actually married. Like, that is very bizarre.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So,
But yeah, Val in that scene was, yeah, Val was very happy.
yeah. So what would you give this episode?
I went with 9.5. I thought it was a really strong episode.
Yeah, it is a good one. So yeah, I'll give it a 9. I'll give it a 9. And we'll be excited to talk about the Christmas movie next episode. So let us know what you think. If you're listening, what you think of these 3 episodes. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And we'll look forward to what you have to say about the Christmas movie. And Michelle, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Michelle R. Benson.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media. And make sure you're following the podcast on social media at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, which we have upcoming our watch along with Paul Campbell. It's going to be so fun. So definitely check that out. We all have our merch store, which has some Heartland inspired merch. So please take a look at that. And thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.